David here with Fig Boot on Pens. You know, this is a video that I've considered doing for quite some time. Those of you who've watched many of my reviews know that, you know, I have a tendency to really stay on the positive side of things. I don't spend too much time focusing on the negative aspects of pens, and I typically don't bash pens too much, but today I wanted to talk about some pens that I purchased that I didn't care for. Pens that I regretted purchasing for various reasons. My disclaimer for this list is that these are my personal opinions based on my experiences with these specific pens that I had purchased. There is a difference between a bad pen and a pen that is bad for me. And so the ones that I'm covering for the most part are pens that I feel are bad for me. You might own one of these pens and love it. It might be perfect for you, and there is nothing wrong with that. I'm not criticizing anyone for owning these pens. They're just ones that didn't work for me and which have features that I feel miss the mark in regard to my own personal tastes. Each of these pens are ones that I've yet to review, other than one. I have reviewed one of them, but they're not going to be comprehensive reviews, but what I'm going to be doing is going over the pens and talk about my misgivings about each of them, and then provide you with a comparable alternative that I feel checks off more boxes when it comes to an increase in positive experience. So, okay, with that disclaimer out of the way, the first pen on my list is one from a manufacturer that I do like as a whole, and that manufacturer is Faber-Castell, and the pen is the Basic. And this is the pen. You know, there's four main things about the Basic that don't work for me. First of all is the polished barrel. It's just a fingerprint magnet, and I really don't care for the way that it feels in my hand. Not all Basics have this barrel. They have a black leather barrel that seems like it might be interesting, and then there's also a woven black carbon fiber one that looks pretty cool. So in regard to the barrel, I could have made a different buying decision, but in regard to the other three things, they're more universal across all the versions of the pen. Second is the cap. You know, I'm not a big fan of this chopped off part on the end, but the thing that bothers me more is really the materials used in the cap. It's more of a soft, cheaper plastic that is really lightweight and feels like the cap off of any old ballpoint pen. In your hand, it just doesn't feel like quality materials. The third thing is the section. It has a rubber grip. Remember back in school when you had those little rubber grip things you used to put on your pencils? It kind of reminds me of one of those. The grip works just fine. It functions perfectly well. But going on back to the common theme with this pen, I just don't like the way it really feels in my hand. And finally, the fourth thing is posting the cap. There's a little indented portion here on the end of the barrel that's about ½ an inch long, and the cap posts right on top of it. It does post well. It does post securely, but it does not post very deep. So you can see the length of this pen. The end result is an extremely long pen. It's like 7½ inches. So it looks a little comical when you post it. And then if you unpost the pen, listen to this. It pops. And that I would never take this to a meeting at work and post it and then make that noise. It would just be a distraction and kind of embarrassing when it makes this sound. There is an ink window on the Basic, which is nice, and the Faber-Castell steel nibs are outstanding. I have no complaints with those whatsoever. So what is an alternative to the Basic? Well, it's another pen by Faber-Castell, and that is the Loom. Now, this is the one that I mentioned that I do have a review for on my channel, so if you want to see a complete review, then just look on my channel for that. And just to go over the same four aspects on the Loom, the barrel on the model I have is a matte silver, which I don't find slick at all and really doesn't attract fingerprints. The cap has a really nice matte finish to it. Again, that it's just also made of a little bit on the harder plastic. It's not overly heavy, but it just feels a little more substantive in your hand. I will admit the section on the loom is a bit polarizing. There are some folks that don't care for it. It just tapers down and doesn't have a flare or a definitive place where you're supposed to grip the pen. Some people find it to be a bit slick and difficult to grip, but I find it perfectly fine. I don't have an issue with it. I personally like the fact that it feels different than any other pen that I own. There are some little ridges that are on here that help you grip the pen. And lastly, the cap actually posts very deeply, and it gives the loom a very reasonable size, and the cap is lightweight enough that it doesn't throw off the balance of the pen. The Basic and the Loom are basically the same price, right around the $35 to $40 range. And for me, it's really no contest. But the Loom also comes in what they call a piano version, which does have a polished barrel. And the cap is made of a shinier plastic. And I personally prefer the matte model to that one. So next we have a very inexpensive pen. And that pen is the Zebra V301. This is a pen that I picked up for $3. And just because it's inexpensive doesn't mean it needs to be cheap. I've used lots of inexpensive pens which have performed very well, but this is not one of them. It's stainless steel and plastic, and the materials just feel very flimsy. I don't think it would really take much pressure for me to bend this metal beyond repair. The cap fits on the end of the barrel to post, but on my pen, it will not remain posted. It just falls right off and is not secure at all, which is unacceptable, even for a $3 pen. Then we have the feed. The feed on the Zebra is a bit non-traditional. The ink is actually delivered to the end of the nib via like a string or a thread-like filament that you can see here. The performance of this ink delivery system is rather intermittent, to say the least. I used to have a car, a 1975 Fiat Spider. It used to run great, except for when it didn't, which was often. The same could be said of this pen. It will write just fine, except for when it won't, which is often. The nib doesn't give you much of a fountain pen feel either when you write with it. It's almost more like writing with a thin marker. That's just kind of the feel that it gives you. So what's an alternative to the $3 Zebra V301? That would be the $4 Platinum Preppy. For only a single dollar more, you can get a much more solid and reliable pen. The Preppy is made from inexpensive plastic, but I wouldn't describe it as feeling cheap or of poor quality. The nibs are a decent quality and are the exact same nibs that are used on some of the slightly more expensive Platinum pens, still in their bargain line. The cap posts securely as well. And one of the very best things about the Preppy, in my opinion, is the easy conversion to use this pen as an eyedropper, which I have. This is actually a clear plastic model, and you can see that it has some blue ink in here. I believe this is Noodler's Polar Blue that I've had in here for quite some time. The barrel holds a ton of ink, and it allows you to fill it with the ink of your choice to give the pen a really unique look. And they write. I've had Preppies that have sat unused for over a year, and that you pick them up and they write right away. The nibs aren't spectacular, but they work. There's something to be said for being able to pick up a pen and it writes, which the Preppies do. Just as a side, Preppy also comes with a marker that I really like. Obviously that's not a fountain pen, but it's something I use every day at work. What I like is you can eyedropper it so that it's just like using a Sharpie with your favorite fountain pen ink. And also when you use Sharpies, you know how the tip rounds off over time and kind of loses some of its sharpness. I don't know what material they use on the end of the Preppy markers, but I've used a couple of them for probably almost 2 years, and they still write just like they did out of the box, and they haven't worn down after tons of use. But it is kind of cool being able to put whatever ink you want to with them. So, okay, on to the next pen. It has been said that imitation is the sincerest form of flattery. A Pixar movie, A Bug's Life, has similar plot elements to Kurosawa's Seven Samurai, but no one is accusing Pixar of ripping off Kurosawa. There are enough elemental changes to make the Pixar movie stand on its own. In the pen world, we have pens such as the Platinum President. The President, without a doubt, has been inspired by the Mont Blanc 146. And you can see that they look fairly similar, but there's enough differences to make the President stand on its own as a pen that has been inspired by the 146, and influenced by it, but not a ripoff of it. That being said, sometimes an imitation is just a flat-out ripoff. And in my opinion, that's what we have here with the Jinhao 599. Now, Jinhao makes some pretty decent, inexpensive pens. Other Jinhaos I've seen have their own unique style, but the 599, in my opinion, is a clear ripoff of a Lammie. The 599 is offered in a wide variety of colors and materials that resemble the Lammie Safari, the All-Star, and in regard to this specific model, the Vista, which I have right here. Now, there is a great deal of debate in the pen community whether or not this pen crosses the line between an imitation or something that's inspired by it and a ripoff. I'll admit the clips are different enough. The 599s is definitely inspired by the Lammies, but I feel that one aspect of the pen is at least appropriately different in design. The nibs are different as well. The 599 has a more traditional shaped nib, and Lammie has their shoulderless design. The 599 performs just fine. I don't have any issues with that aspect of the pen, but the rest of the pen, that's what I have issues with. First of all, the finial. Other than the X that is on the end of the Lammie, the finials are very, very similar with the black dot. The dimensions of the pen are virtually identical in all aspects. The caps are actually interchangeable. You can take the cap off of the 599 and it fits just fine on the Lammie. The Lammie has a very distinctive triangular section, and the 599s is identical to it. It's a triangular section that kind of forces you into a grip, and they've basically copied it. I've removed the converters from the pen so you can see a bit better, but Lammie's unique ink window is again identical. You can kind of see here that there's this oval ink window, and it is identical on both pens. Even the grooves on the side of the Lammie's barrel are mirrored on the F99 or the F99 on the 599, but the 599s aren't quite as long. And the logo is actually placed in the very same area of the barrel. Now, the Lammies is actually printed on, and 599s is there as part of the injection mold, but you get the idea. And in regard to the converters that I removed, which of these is the proprietary Lammie Z24 converter, and which one is the one from Jinhao? They're virtually identical, down to the logo placement on the end of the piston. But the 599 is actually a standard international converter and doesn't match Lammie's proprietary size. But even down to the converters are virtually identical, other than the size at the end. All that being said, I feel the 599 has really crossed the line from being inspired by Lammie to basically being a flat-out ripoff of them. And I've regretted supporting the model with my purchase. I can understand the appeal of that pen. A Safari retails for the $25 to $30 range. You can pick up a pack of 6 of these Jinhao 599s for $9. So basically that's $1.50 a pen for something which actually does perform well. I've just felt guilty for the purchase. In regard to an alternative, I would suggest picking up a couple other Jinhaos. There is the Jinhao 750 and 450, which the 750 was $9 and the 450 was $5. But each of those are decent pens for entry level that feel solid and write well. So if you're looking for a Jinhao, you might want to pick these up. That I think that these are much better pens than the 599. The last pen on the list is a pen that I don't feel is a bad pen. I just feel that it's at an inappropriate price point. I feel it's way too expensive for what it is. And that pen is another Faber-Castell, and that is the Undaro. This is a pen which retails for about $140. And so it's not an inexpensive pen. But I feel the materials used on this specific Undaro model are really lacking for that price. First of all, we have the cap. It's plastic with a chrome coating on the top. And when you look inside the cap, you can see that the plastic is inside there. And I just really don't care for the look. I wish the cap was all metal. Also, the cap and barrel have an octagonal shape, so that means you have to make sure the pen is correctly oriented, or else you can't either post it or cap the pen. There's some rounded off areas of the section transition that will help orient the cap at times, but in my experience, maybe like 1 out of every 3 or 4 times it doesn't orient, so you need to twist a bit in order to cap it or post it. Just a little bit of an annoyance. Then we have the section and the barrel. The section is a bit on the short side, as you can see here, and it forces you into a specific grip. Now, that might bother some folks, but for me, I actually don't mind that. For me, it's a very comfortable grip. The issue I have with the barrel is basically the material that's used. This is the resin version. It has a matte finish, which I typically really like, but in my opinion, the material that they used for the Undaro feels just a little bit on the rubbery side. Now, Faber-Castell makes a different version of this pen with a metal section and a wood barrel. That one might have been a better purchase for me, although I believe the cap is the same material on that model. The nib on this pen is outstanding. Like I mentioned before, I really enjoy the Faber-Castell steel nibs. There's a unique feedback that they provide that I like a great deal. And I would really like this pen a great deal more if it was in the $70 price point rather than twice that amount. Now, what's something else that you could get for the price of an Undaro? How about another Faber-Castell? And that other Faber-Castell would be the E-Motion. This is a pen that retails for around $165, so just a little bit more than the Undaro, but I feel you get a lot more pen for your money. The E-Motion is a metal pen that is actually very heavy. It's one of the heavier pens in my collection. I really like the hinged clip. That's kind of cool. And the cap twists off and you have a decent medium-sized section, which offers you a few more gripping options. Then you have the barrel, which I know it's tough to see, but here's a picture of it. It has some knurling on it that gives the E-Motion a unique tactile experience. It's a pen that feels very solid in your hand, as well as in addition to performing well with that Faber-Castell steel nib. So there you have it. Those are some of the pens that I regret purchasing and some alternatives that you might want to consider. As I said up front, some of you out there might just love some of these pens and they might fit your taste perfectly. And there is nothing wrong with that. If someone else made up this list based on their tastes, there's a good chance that a pen that I really like would end up on this list as well. I really love my Lammie Dialogue 3. And this is a pen that I know for a large number of people, they just despise it. It's a very polarizing pen. But that's one of the beauties of this hobby. There is such a wide variety of pens out there that no matter what your tastes, no matter what you like, no matter what you prefer, I can virtually guarantee that there's something out there that fits those tastes perfectly. And here's to hoping that you can find that very pen that fits those tastes. So I don't have a giveaway on this video, but if you wanted to leave a comment, let me know what you feel is that perfect pen for you, whether it's one you own or one that you'd like to purchase down the line. And that I'm certain that you'll see quite a wide variety of pens mentioned. With that, thanks for watching, and I'll talk to you later.